Welcome to Silberman Law Firm's Weekly Docket, episode 34, where we talk legal news and practical law. Today is September 5th, 2024, and I'm your host, Phil Silberman, and owner of the firm, and I'm joined by my co-host, Austin Black, who works in our Dallas office. How are you doing today, Austin?
I am doing great. I'm happy that the weather in Dallas is finally cooling down, even if it looks like it may only be for a short spell.
Yeah, and that's why you have a sweater on.
I try to wear a sweater. I keep my apartment as cool as I can without killing myself on the electric bill.
Yeah.
Like during the winter, when I lived in Korea, I don't use the heater. I just walk around my apartment with blankets.
Okay, so it's good that you're over there conserving energy because you're an avid environmentalist.
I conserve energy during the winter and not during the summer.
Okay, well, you're doing your part.
I do my part.
What's on our docket today, Mr. Black?
Okay, so for our legal news section, we are first talking about the viral Chase Bank ATM glitch, which a lot of people who may not have a very large amount of brain cells attempted to utilize and are quickly finding out the repercussions of that choice. So we'll talk about exactly what that is, and then we will be moving on to a new DOJ prod against RealPage, accusing them of illegally coordinating rent prices, which is obviously bad in DOJ, Department of Justice. But then moving on to our legal question section, first discussing workers' compensation in Texas, and then secondary, can you be sued for sharing a post on social media? That sort of correlates and goes with other themes we've had in the podcast in previous episodes, but we'll cross-reference those and let you know if you can be sued for something. It really is just whether it aligns with certain areas of law. And then our rant and rave section, the hidden danger of added sugars in American foods. This one will be fun to talk about. It's really ridiculous.
That sounds scary. It's because we're close to Halloween now. We're almost 60, less than 60 days away from Halloween. So we're hidden danger of added sugars. That's dangerous.
It's just everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere, but we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it now. But, all right, let's start with our legal news section, and we're talking about this Chase Bank thing. Until you reviewed the outline, had you heard about this, Austin? Or
yes, I had.
Okay.
I had heard about this. I had heard about the many stupid people that live in this world. Yes.
Okay, so tell us what was going on, because I had not heard about it until I read the outline.
So I don't know the specifics of how they were able to do it, but what I know about it is somehow people were able to withdraw more money from ATMs than they actually had in their accounts. And they saw this as like a quick money hack or something.
Life hack.
A life hack, thinking that this was just like free money. Like it's just like the stimulus checks, right? If free money, it appears out of nowhere, doesn't affect the economy at all, doesn't affect anything else. You just get it. It's a hack. And there were people on TikTok posting videos about how to replicate this. And apparently some people attempted to do so.
Okay. So I think you've explained to the listeners and to me the viral component of it, which I did not know. I watched a video recently here just before the show on X and somebody who just posted a video, and it was in New York, and there were people lined up at Chase ATM to go get all the free money.
Yeah. And all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. All the free money. So people were doing this. Now, what was going on once I investigated it is people would take a check, and just like a fraudulent check, maybe from another account or from a friend or whatever, and they would write the check out for some amount of money, say $1,000. And then they would take it to the bank or to Chase or to the actual Chase ATM and then deposit the check at ATMs. There's remote deposit and there's ATM deposit. So they would take it to the ATM or they would remote deposit it. And then Chase would immediately give them credit for the funds, even though it was a bad check. And then they'd sit there and withdraw cash, right? Yeah. So and they thought, oh, this is just a glitch and it's a free money kind of thing, right? I'm shocked by the stupidity of people. I wanted to ask you, Austin, because you're in the know and you're youngish, and you have friends that are not attorneys, right? You have friends that are not doctors. Do you have like regular friends that might be like a bartender? And not to,
Yes, I have friends who are welders, things like yes. Yeah.
Would people? And I guess I'm saying they wouldn't. Okay,
there are probably two of them I can think off the top of my head who might do this, but they would talk to someone about it beforehand. In like, hey man, I heard about this really cool. And then the person that they talk to, they would not be using them as a sounding board, but the person they talk to would be like, hey, don't do that. That's really stupid. So I don't know anyone who would actually do it.
Okay, so most people should connect, even not knowing the law, should connect that this is illegal. Right.
Yep.
All right. And how is it illegal? It's basically check fraud. Okay. And we've got a citation here, Texas Penal Code Section 32.41. Is issuing or passing a check knowing there are insufficient funds can result in criminal charges. And it's a state jail felony if the amount exceeds $2,500 in Texas. And it goes up if there's more money. There's also a federal check fraud act. It's 18 USC Section 1344, bank fraud. And that's a criminal act for defrauding financial institutions. So I'm amazed. If anybody's practically wondering how this works, if you don't know, if you're just the average Joe with a bank account out there, you should notice when you deposit, and a lot of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And if this is you, I'm not beating you up about it. Okay, specifically, if you're a listener or whoever, this is very common in the United States. You might have $500 in your account. You get some sort of check. Maybe it was a stimulus check, or maybe it was like a paycheck, and you put it in the account. Most banks do not immediately give you access to those funds because they want the check to clear. Otherwise, the bank knows they're going to be out the money. Unless you have enough money in your account, let's say you've got like $100,000 in your account and you deposit a $2,500 check, you're not going to have, the bank's not that concerned with the $2,500 check clearing because they know they still have $100,000 originally and they're in good funds. So if you have a relationship with a small bank, and for example, our firm has a relationship with Texas Gulf Bank, they're not paying us anything for that plug, but it's a good bank. All right.
Wait. There's a bank called Texas Gulf Bank. Is it specifically for people in Texas who play golf?
GULF. Golf.
No, Gulf Bank.
Gulf Bank. Am I not pronouncing that correctly? Is my Texan coming out? Is there?
I heard golf. Maybe I misheard, but yeah.
Yeah. So our firm, we could get a big settlement check. We keep lots of money in the bank accounts, and we're a business, right? I wonder if I brought a check down to Texas Gulf Bank, it was a $500, $600 million, $2 million, whatever. And I could be like, let me have the $2 million. They probably at some point would probably say, no, we need to let this be seasoned a little bit. But that's how I don't know what was wrong with Chase, if it was really a glitch.
Yeah, for some reason, Chase, and actually something I noticed even before, because I do bank with Chase in addition to a few other banks. I noticed, like, conversely with like Capital One, if I deposited a check with them, those funds would not be available for a certain amount of days. But with Chase, for some reason, if I like mobile deposited a check or something, it would just show up as accessible on my account immediately. And obviously, I didn't. Any check I deposited was not a bad check, but I never was like so low on the amount of funds in my account that I ever tried to utilize that. But that I did notice that and thought that was odd that they just immediately showed it as available funds, whereas other banks did.
That's bizarre. I think that may be the biggest bank in the country. I can't believe that they had how many people they had giving access to funds, if that was really a glitch or what their setup was. But banking 101, if anything, that's terrifying to me from the sense of, is our banking system really as strong as I thought it was when Chase Bank makes that kind of mistake? It probably did not add up to a significant sum of money. It probably would sound like a lot of money to maybe Chase lost $10 million. I don't know what it was, but relative to Chase Bank, I don't think that's going to put a dent in Chase's armor.
I highly appreciate American banks as opposed to Korean banks, I will say. For foreigners in Korea, they would not give you a bank card at some of the banks if you're a foreigner. What in the world is this? So crazy. But
Yeah, foreign banking it can be bizarre. Germany's
Yeah.
got some weird rules too. There's all
Mm.
kinds of crazy stuff that's good.
Those weren't rules. Those weren't rules. Those were just the banks because I was white. They were like, no, I think you're not Koreans.
Well, that was like the other. We had another piece where the banks were discriminating against white people. That could have been
Yeah,
in our other segment on a
sure.
lawsuit against banks that
Yeah.
discriminated against white people. I'm looking at J.P. Morgan Chase JPM ticker, and in the last 5 days, their stock is down a little bit from $225 a share down to $218 a share. So I'm not sure if that was part of a broader sell off or this actually did affect their share price. But bottom line here, absolutely check fraud. If you see some of these crazy videos on social media and you're a person out there thinking this may be a free ride, it's probably the old saying, there's no free lunch. And there's state check fraud, federal check fraud. That's not something you want to mess around with. And again, the social media stuff is not good, not always. So
I guarantee this was brought to you by the same idiots who were talking about ways to break into Kias. Okay. Both of these things are bad. Both of them are bad ideas. Okay. They're both illegal. Don't follow them. If anyone talks about a life hack on TikTok that is not involving the kitchen, I would probably avoid it. Okay.
there you go. There you go. I'm wondering like who would want to steal a Kia, but maybe you're going to break in and get some change, some loose change in the center console.
Kias are cars. What are you talking about?
All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next legal topic. We've got the Department of Justice filed a lawsuit in the Middle District of North Carolina accusing RealPage of antitrust violations. And if you don't know, they provide software solutions to multifamily projects, apartments, and their software probably does everything from set the rent rates, and they've got into probably dynamic pricing where the rents are always moving around. And the idea is if they're supplying the multifamily housing industry, a significant percentage of them with suggestions or recommendations on how to set rent prices, then the DOJ's position is that's a type of collusion. Now, if you're thinking about this and you live in Dallas, Austin, and you live in an apartment, so let's say you're in the market for a nice apartment and there's 100 apartments that you're looking for in your area. The idea is you walk into sort of similar apartments, 2 bedrooms, whatever, and you start seeing all the same prices. That's likely because RealPage is the software provider for all those apartments, and RealPage is setting the prices. What do you think? Is that collusion? Is that price fixing? Or
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Just you didn't even have to think about it.
No. Yes, it is.
So I used to be in this industry. At one time, I owned one of the largest apartment locating companies in the state. And at that time, it was just this dynamic pricing thing was coming out. And it was very common to shop your competitors. Apartments would call down the road and say, hey, apartment down the road, this is apartment. Sometimes I wouldn't even this is apartment down. I'm over here. You're over there. Tell me what you're charging for one bedroom.
Yeah.
I don't know that the communication itself is necessarily price fixing. And then some apartment complexes would send their leasing agents, that people that work on site, down the road and pretend that they were interested in an apartment and get pricing. And then we had these kind of data services out there in Texas. I don't remember what they were, maybe ALN. There used to be like ADS, apartment data systems, and different services, smart apartment data. I don't know if these are still out there. And then they started collecting data. I don't know that doing price comparisons and having a data solution and figuring out what apartments are charging and then setting your prices are necessarily a violation of antitrust, of price fixing.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so it's a little different. Now, if I call up the apartment next door and I say, I'm going to charge $1,500 for my one bedroom, would you agree with me to not charge anything less than $1,500? And the guy says, yes, we are in agreement.
Yeah.
That is most likely illegal price fixing.
Sure. And what's happening is likely somewhere between those two, right? It's between the explicit, hey, we're not going to charge below this, and then like calling around and figuring out. But if you're using the same pricing software to make a dynamic model of what these are going to be priced at, and they're all priced the same, then I think that does tip closer to the, hey, we're not going to charge anything below this. So
Yeah, and RealPage's position is, our software can also recommend lower prices.
when has it?
Right. Yeah, you very rarely see them go. I haven't been in the market for an apartment in some time, but you very rarely see them go down. I think it's going to be a very fact-based decision, and it's going to get into maybe the logarithms and the software and how is it actually working. And effectively, just because you have a software that's an intermediary, and maybe that's the modern day telephone call of, hey, will you agree to not charge anymore? I think RealPage is probably also going to say the apartment can choose to override our suggestions if they. But practically,
why would they choose to override it when it's always going higher?
Yeah, I agree. We'll see. We'll see how that comes out. RealPage is obviously denying the allegations. The housing is extremely expensive right now. All right, we'll let everyone know how the RealPage thing comes out. It's another antitrust case. So let's answer some legal questions. And we're talking about workers' compensation. And Austin, our firm is a subscriber to workers' compensation insurance. So that means that we pay, I think we pay Liberty Mutual. Again, not Liberty Mutual is not paying us anything for that plug, but we pay Liberty Mutual. It's a relatively small amount of money. I think it's like $1,000 a year or something like that. And if Austin says you're a W-2 employee of the firm, you're not a contractor. If you get hurt, right? If you go into the office to meet a client and you trip over a coffee cord, right?
Or sprain my pinky reaching for the backspace key, right?
Something like that. Maybe like carpal tunnel syndrome. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
You cannot sue the law firm, Austin. You have to file an application to go through the workers' compensation process, and you can get those insurance benefits. I want you to know that I do that for you, Austin, and the rest of the firm because I love my people. Right. And that's an added perk. And as another bonus, I don't want my people to sue me. So to be able to, now, if I were a non-subscriber, if I didn't have workers' compensation, if the law firm did not have workers' compensation, then Austin, then you would be permitted to sue me when you sprain your pinky or trip over a coffee cord or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a quick summary of how the system works. If we have an independent contractor, so if we're hiring, let's say we have a court reporter come into the conference room, and that court reporter is not an employee of the firm, and our law firm does something negligent and that court reporter trips over the coffee cord, then because that court reporter is an independent contractor, right, they can sue the law firm. They're not part of the workers' compensation regime. Okay. Sure. So now it'd be interesting to see if they're covered under the court reporter's policy, their company, the court reporter, if they're a W-2 employee for the court reporter. If you're a small business owner and you're a non-subscriber and you don't have workers' compensation insurance, you need to post a notice, and that's under Texas Labor Code Section 406.005. You have to post a written notice in a conspicuous place. Sometimes you see it in the break rooms of these offices, and you have to tell them you're a non-subscriber.
So how would that work for like remote working?
Yes.
Would that mean like every time we have our firm meeting, you have a big plaque behind you that says we do not have workers' comp?
I have often wondered that. And this is one of the things we're going to talk. Let's talk about remote, since Austin brought it up. If your remote is very prevalent, our law firm is predominantly remote. Okay. Our attorneys, our admin staff usually work remotely. Austin, you're doing this podcast from your apartment, your home, right?
Yes.
If you get up out of that chair and you trip on your own coffee cord, he would trip over. Austin, could you sue the law firm if you trip over your own stuff in your own house? Or would you be covered under our workers' compensation policy?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Nobody knows.
I think like it would be, it would probably just be whatever the judge in that situation thought. I think it would have to be a better argument if it was something supplied before. Like, what if I tripped over the power cord for the company supplied laptop, right?
Yeah. That's a better fact. Yeah. The way this works, you could try to sue me and I'd say, no, you're covered under the policy. And then you'd have to go file a claim under the policy. And then perhaps our insurance company denies your claim, but they're like, you weren't at an office. We don't know. My point is, we don't know the answers to these questions. And this is a really weird kind of, and the way these applications work is if you're a small business owner and you're completing an application for workers' compensation insurance, there's no questions for all of your people that work from home. They're like, it's the old days. Give us your physical offices and then give us all your people and then allocate salaries for all the offices where those people work. And I'm like, wait a minute. I can't. I've got this square peg I'm trying to fit into a round hole. And a lot of business owners are in this situation is it doesn't work. And the insurance agent doesn't know. And they're just ramming through the application. So this is something we probably need to investigate. The real reason I carry workers' compensation, I'm more concerned, Austin, if you're out there driving around to court and let's say you get injured in an accident on the way to court. I don't want you to sue the law firm. I want you to be able to file under workers' compensation policy. I think that's, if you're out there like you're a law firm, or an architectural firm, or you're an engineering firm, and you're thinking, hey, do I need workers' compensation?
Yeah.
Remember, your office environment may not be that dangerous. I don't know how likely it is for someone to trip and fall or get stabbed in the eye with a pencil or whatever. But if your people are out there driving around, I think that's where the real risk comes in. And your workers' comp policies are going to be a lot cheaper for desk work. If you're out there and you've got like a plumbing company or you've got a factory, I suspect those are going to be very expensive workers' compensation policies. So
yeah. Or if a judge decides to throw a rule of procedure at you because of an argument you're making, like physically throw the book at you, and in that situation, that would probably be a workers' comp thing for a lawyer, right?
Injured you, and the judge is a third party. And I don't typically insurance only covers like negligent acts.
So if the judge threw the book not intending to hit you.
Yes, if it was like a negligent thing. But but you can probably sue the judge, but then you have this whole sovereign immunity issue. But I would argue then that the judge is not acting in official capacity when he threw something.
Yeah, probably not.
So that you opened up a whole can of worms on that fact pattern, my friend.
I try to do that.
Yeah. You can sue third parties. So tragically, we had a closing. Our title company had a closing this week, and it ended up not closing because one of the parties of the transaction had a terrible accident at work. I think the guy owned some kind of industrial place and somebody died at work, and they were on some big lawnmower. And the guy, he thought a shredder, I call them shredders. Okay. But you ever seen like a big tractor shredder, and the guy gets off the tractor and he lifts up the shredder and he had it off, but the hydraulic fluid that kept the wing of that shredder in position was low. And that wing, and it fell and smothered him to death. It was terrible. Yeah, it was terrible, gruesome kind of thing. And yeah, that was a bad accident. And now, if the owner of that business had a workers' compensation policy, of course, this is death, right? But there's an exception. You can sue the employer if it was gross negligence that led to the death. So if it's a work-related injury, results in death, the family may sue the employer if it's gross negligence, and you get into a situation, severe disregard for the safety of others. Did that business show severe disregard by not checking all the machinery and making sure the hydraulic fluid was full? So
yeah, that's going to be the question.
That's a tough one. All right, so that's a little bit about workers' compensation, and if you're out there and you're a small business owner and you're wondering, should I have it? I would say absolutely get workers' compensation, get a policy, especially if it's $1,000 a year. If it's something nominal, go ahead and get it, because it's going to keep your employees from being able to sue you directly. So you really want that kind of thing. So all right, let's move on to our next legal question. Can you be sued for sharing a post on social media? Do you lay awake at night thinking about that? If you, like Austin, let's say you got the Chase glitch post.
Sure.
And you shared it. And you mentioned you had two friends. One was a bartender and one was a welder, and you thought they weren't very smart. So
yes, sure.
Yeah.
That wasn't exactly what I said, but yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah.
Okay, and you shared it to one of those guys, and they go and use it. Like, are you responsible, for that? And it's something like, hey, this is a life hack. It's not. Can you be responsible for that? That's not really. Austin shaking his head. No, I don't know. Austin, I think you can. I think we've researched this. And if it's a situation, let's say you get a post about me and someone says that Phil cheats on his taxes.
Sure.
Right. And you share that on your social media platform. can I sue you for libel? It would be, there's this type of defamation, there's slander and libel. Slander is verbal defamation. Libel is written defamation. And can you be sued for libel? Also, I think the answer is clearly yes, because Texas recognizes this republication doctrine, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you shared it, that's a republication. So you got to be careful out there if you're sharing posts. There's also copyright issues. Same principle applies. These are different areas. Defamation. Go ahead.
And like, again, as we've talked about, as far as defamation goes, like truth is an absolute defense, and also not an absolute defense, but if something you're presenting is an opinion. Now, if I say Phil is committing tax fraud or something like that, that's not an opinion. That's a statement, right?
Yeah.
It can be proven or disproven. But if I say Phil has a bad haircut or something like that, right? Like, that's an opinion. Can't sue me for that.
Yeah, and which I often do have a bad haircut because I get my haircut at terrible places. But the principles apply to copyright infringement. If you republish a post and share a post, you're going to have copyright problems. So be careful what you're doing out there. If you've got some sort of statement and you share it and it's a post, that could also be, you could be liable for defamation under the doctrine of republication in Texas. Because if you publish it, then obviously you're going to have the issue. But if you're sharing, that's a republication. All right. So that brings us to my favorite part of the show, which is our rant and rave section. And today we're talking about the hidden danger of added sugars in American food. Yeah, something that I'm very passionate about. People are going to think I'm like a huge killjoy because we did that piece on THC. Austin, I remember the THC marijuana deal. That is like, for our level of content, Austin, it's like blowing up on TikTok. It's not quite as popular as republishing a post about free money on Chase, get free money out of Chase ATM. But all the cuckoo birds are like coming out on that THC post, and they're like, who cares if it's a higher content and we're a bunch of idiots. Austin, you and I are idiots because, or at least I'm an idiot because.
Yeah, I was like, they probably like my opinion on it. I don't really care.
I'm an idiot because their position is just because the THC content is higher in products nowadays doesn't mean that it's worse for you. There was one old guy who was like, I don't know, there's always that old guy, and I'm an old guy now. There was the old guy on TikTok, and he was like, I was around for the 70s, and I can tell you that this stuff is way stronger. That's why I take my THC at 20% level. And then they got mad at him, I think.
Okay.
All right. We're talking about sugar. This piece is really about how the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, regulates food labeling in this country. And we're going to use sugar as an example. And we're going to talk a little bit about fat, but mostly sugar. Okay. So Austin, prior to Ozempic, there was a health crisis in America. I guess there still is. Now, if you're fat, you just get on Ozempic. But health crisis in America, everyone's fat. Okay, added sugar could be to blame. It could also be fat, but we're talking about sugar. We've got a list. Don't look at the list, but 5 strangest things you'd put sugar in. Okay, bread. You go to the grocery store. How do you eat your bread? Do you just buy bread like off the shelf, or do you buy real bread, Austin? Do you eat bread, or you're gluten intolerant?
What do you mean by real bread?
Do you just go and buy like the Mrs. Beard?
No. I don't buy bread often. When I do buy it, it's usually from like a bakery.
Okay, that's good. So if you buy bread in America, oftentimes you go to a grocery store and it's like in a bag. And if you're at a grocery store and you look at the labels, good luck trying to find bread that's like a 0 sugar bread. Like that, all of it has added sugar. Now, why do you need to put sugar in bread? I don't know. I don't think they do it a lot in Europe. If you go buy a baguette in Paris, I'm almost certain that baguette does not have sugar in it. It's not necessary. The core of bread is flour and water. Now, if you add sugar, it's like Mary Poppins said, Austin. If you add a lot of sugar, you've just turned bread into cakes. So that's what it is. So at some point, when you're eating something like, I don't know, a Hawaiian roll, people are going to get mad at me. King's Hawaiian dinner rolls have 5 grams of added sugars to them per serving. Okay, that's not an insignificant amount of
that is, I will say, that's less than I thought.
Yeah, you'd have thought it'd been like a chocolate
tasting
cake.
Those things, I would have thought, because they're very sweet. I would have thought there was more, but
maybe there's other stuff in it making it sweet. All right, bread, tomato sauce. Like I always said, there's enough sugar naturally in tomato sauce. You don't need to put any more sugar in tomato sauce.
Yeah. Get your tomato sauce from Italy. Okay. Go get your tomato sauce from Italy, right? Like it's very expensive, but it's authentic.
If you go to your grocery store aisle and you want to buy tomato sauce without sugar, you have to turn around, you have to read the label and try to find which tomato sauces don't have sugar. Now they all have sugar in it naturally from the tomato, but they're like putting more in it. Salad dressing, okay, 5 to 7 grams of added sugar. I don't know why you want sugar in your salad dressing. Peanut butter, if you have natural peanut butter, should contain no added sugar. Peanut butter is probably not good for you, period. But a lot of peanut butter out there, you
eat any peanut butter? So
no, anything. I'm crazy. Like anything that tastes good. If your brain is telling, when you take a bite out of it, and your brain is telling, that's wonderful, I want more, it's generally bad for you.
That's true.
All right, beef jerky. Like here, why do you want sugar in your beef jerky? Those are some things that you're out there. What's the law on this? Okay, Nutrition Labeling Education Act of 1990, this goes back to 1990, requires all food manufacturers to disclose the amount of sugar in their products. As of 2020, they had to add a line that said added sugars. So if you're out there and you're health conscious and you believe that sugar is bad for you, which it probably is, thanks to that act, you now can read and see how much added sugar is in the stuff, okay? So this is not sugar related, but I want to talk to you about another law that has been abusive and deceptive. PAM cooking spray, I think it's like all fat, but if you turn the label over on it, it's just like a bunch of zeros, okay?
Yeah.
Zero calories. And that's because there's some FDA regulations, and it's 21 and then 101.9. If a serving contains less than 5 calories, then companies are allowed to round down to 0 on the label. So it's a PAM. When you spray on your pan, it's okay. If it's a fourth of a second spray is 1 serving. How does PAM arrive at that? And are people half a second or whatever? Then because it's less than 5 calories, they can round down to 0 on everything. But people look at it, they're going through the grocery, they look at it and they're like, oh, I guess this must be really good for me. It's like water, it's 0 calorie. But that is not true. And there is that regulation out there under that specific law that is a loophole for that PAM cooking spray to do that. And to me, the rant is that's really a deceptive strategy there that the cooking spray is using. And I'm glad, I didn't know it was as recent as 2020, we had to start having added sugar. Here's some things you should probably never eat. Do you eat Fruit Loops, Austin? Or
no
sugar cereals? 12 grams of sugar.
Yeah, cereals are bad.
Gatorade. When you work out, do you ever grab a Gatorade?
No, I drink water.
Gatorade, so it is good to replenish your electrolytes. Right?
Sure, but you can get like the 0 sugar Gatorade, and you can talk about artificial sweeteners, etc. But I guarantee you that it'll affect you less than the amount of sugar you're getting in that.
Drinking a Gatorade, it's 34 grams of sugar. That's like a can of soda. Yeah. So if you just finish like a workout, I saw a guy take a tennis lesson today, and he like finished his lesson and then he went right into the cafe and had a Gatorade. Yeah. And it was not, and it's man, you're killing. And it's a young guy who he doesn't even know. So if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're like, you want to do better, you want to be healthy, you got to be careful about the stuff that's put in your body because these companies don't care about you. The FDA sets up some of these regulations to try to help.
You go play tennis for 30 minutes an hour. You drink a thing of Gatorade, even if it's like the smaller container. You're completely obviating anything you did to your body with the workout.
Yeah, you killed your entire workout. Yeah. Good job. So it's another thing that the companies do that are really tricky is like that you'll see like high fructose corn syrup. You'll see dextrose or maltose. Those are like some types of sweetener. I don't know what kind of sugar they put in there and what's that made out of, but if it ends in an ose, those probably just are not good things for you. So I'm not saying you have to cut out sugar. That's not my position, right? I'm a big chocolate cake guy, but you should know when you're putting it in your body and when you're eating healthy. And I think if people are drinking a Gatorade, The thing that was crazy, Kobe Bryant, who's passed away, I don't mean to say anything ill of Kobe Bryant, but you remember the Kobe Bryant Sprite commercials? And Kobe's out there like playing basketball and he's like hydrating with the Sprite. So it's crazy stuff like that. Or did Michael Jordan have the Gatorade commercials? It's just people think these are things that these high performing athletes are putting in their bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good stuff. All right, that brings our show to a close. And I've been your host, Phil Silverman. Austin Black has been my co-host. Like us, follow us, review us wherever you get your podcasts. Yeah. Nothing in this show is meant to be legal advice officially. It's all been for entertainment purposes.
It is meant to be health advice, though.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely not meant to be health advice either. We just trying to help people out with the law on why you have labels on your food and how to read them. And thank the FDA on that. But no, definitely not meant to be health advice or legal advice or investment advice, all for entertainment purposes only. If you do have a question, email us at info@silblawfirm.com.
But if you do listen to this podcast and you become more attractive, healthier, and more financially stable, you can thank us too.
Yes. Yeah. That we promise that you will. That will happen if you listen to this podcast.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Everybody have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.